In the middle of a cold, wet January night in Northeast Indiana, a quiet bridge on 125 West North became the last place Shea Brier would ever be seen alive. It was after 2:00 a.m. when a 911 call came in. Two people driving through the area had spotted a man lying on the bridge, injured and exposed to the wind. They could tell he needed an ambulance. He was alert enough to make sounds, but not coherent. He did not respond to questions. In the darkness, it was impossible to know if it was drugs, a fall, or something worse. A deputy working a 5:00 p.m. to 5:00 a.m. shift was sent out with only one detail. A man was down in the roadway. That was it. The bridge sat on a stretch of road that felt like it led nowhere. It was isolated farmland, the kind of place with long, empty lines of road and no reason for anyone to stop in the middle of the night. The weather had turned the area into a bleak scene. It was mid-January, cold and windy, with days of rain that had caused flooding in the region. When the deputy arrived, a vehicle was pulled off to the side, the one belonging to the people who had found him. Up on the bridge, the man was lying on the concrete. The deputy pulled a wallet from the man's pocket and read the name on the ID. Shea Brier. Shea could only manage moans and groans and groans. There was blood under his head, and it looked like he had been hitting his skull against the concrete. For 10 to 15 minutes, she lay there while the deputy waited for medics to arrive. When the ambulance finally pulled up, she was loaded in and rushed to Adams Memorial Hospital. It was only at the hospital that the truth was discovered. Shea had been shot in the back. There was no exit wound. The bullet had traveled into his heart. Shea Brier died from that wound. In Jay County, Indiana, it did not take long for the news to spread. The county was rural, the kind of community where people recognized each other's trucks and noticed when someone did not show up where they always showed up. And she always showed up. On Sunday morning, January 12th, 2020, she was supposed to be at church. For weeks and months, he had been the first one there, always early, always steady. The night before, he had been at the church for a noodle dinner. He was helping walk older women out. He stayed until the end, one of the last people to leave. He promised he would beat the pastor there in the morning, like he always did. When morning came and Shea's truck was not in the lot, it felt wrong immediately. Within hours, Shea's aunt, Tiffany McLaughlin, and his grandmother, Sharon Taylor, heard that something was off. Calls went out. Hospitals, and sheriff's departments. Nobody would give information. The silence only made the fear heavier. Then Shea's roommate called Tiffany and told her police were at the house. When Tiffany arrived, an officer told her Shea had been shot. Her first question was the one people ask when they still believe there is a chance. Was he okay? The answer ended that hope. Shea had died on the operating table. Shea's mother, Tracy Havel, was living in Hawaii at the time. She was far away, separated by ocean and miles and time zones, when her family called to tell her son was dead. Shea's half-sister, Sydney Havel, was only 17. The news hit like a physical collapse, crying, screaming, shock that did not make sense to the brain. At first, nobody had a clear idea of what had happened on that bridge. She did not have enemies. Friends and coworkers could not name a single person who would want him dead. The list of possible motives looked empty, so the investigation started from zero, beginning with the basic question. Who was Shea Brier? She was born in Indiana, but raised in Hawaii by his mother and stepfather. As a kid, he was a rascal, playful, and full of energy. He was also polite, the type to open doors and treat people with respect. He loved G.I. Joes, and from an early age, he wanted to be in the military. After high school, he joined the Navy. After he was discharged, he returned to Jay County. Despite being raised in Hawaii, she was always described as an Indiana boy at heart. He loved tractors. He loved land. He loved the open rural life. He wanted to put down roots, find a girlfriend, get married, and build a family. But life did not unfold in that order. In 2018, Shea called his mom with news that stunned her. He told her she was going to be a grandma. Tracy had not even known he had a girlfriend. The mother of Shea's child was Esther Jane Steven, known as Edge. She was a local high school softball coach who ran a daycare out of a church. The relationship between Shea and Edge was never described as a simple love story. It seemed more like something that happened, then forced two people to try to build a structure around it. In January 2019, their daughter was born. After the birth, she and Edge started dating. They became engaged. But She's family felt the engagement looked pressured. It did not look affectionate. It did not look like two people deeply connected. It looked like two people trying to make something work because a child was involved. In September 2019, only weeks before the wedding, Edge called it off. She was disappointed. He wanted a family. He wanted to be a father in a way he never had experienced himself because he did not have a strong relationship with his own dad. He wanted to be present. He wanted to be better. He wanted his daughter to know him. And around the same time, Shea began going to church. He found support there. He spent time with men who were active fathers. He watched their lives and wanted that kind of steady role for his own child. But after the broken engagement, She's access to his daughter disappeared. For a long stretch, he did not see her at all. That is when She took a step he believed would change everything. He hired a lawyer. He began the process of establishing paternity, custody, support, and parenting time. He wanted legal recognition. He wanted visitation. He wanted to provide for his daughter. He also wanted his daughter to have his last name, something Edge had refused. When Edge learned Shea was taking legal action, She told his mother Edge became angry. He said Edge warned him that if he went through with it, he would be sorry. Shea filed the court document in November 2019. 2 months later, before the case even reached court, She was murdered. First, She's family suspected Edge because she was the only person in She's life connected to conflict, but the truth was worse than they imagined. Within a day of She's death, Edge was brought in for questioning. Her reaction was flat. There was little emotion, few questions. She said the last time she talked to She was a week earlier, but phone records showed something else. EDG was the last person to call She around midnight, within hours of him being found on the bridge. That was a red flag, but it still was not proof. The next day, a woman named Christy Sibber called and asked to talk. Christy had known Edge for years. She had umpired softball games Edge played in. She had brought her children to the daycare Edge ran out of the church. Edge appeared quiet, community-minded, and good with kids. Over time, Christy became a kind of mentor, someone Edge could talk to when something was bothering her. Christy had never met Shea Brier, but she knew he was the father of Edge's daughter. When she learned Shea had been murdered, she panicked. She dropped everything, contacted someone she trusted, and went to the sheriff's office. In an interview room, she started at the beginning. So, a few days before She's death, Edge called Christy with a strange request. Edge asked her to babysit that weekend, something she had never asked before. Christy agreed. Saturday, January 11, 2020, Christy waited for details all day. She heard nothing. Then late that night, around 10 or 10:30, Edge arrived with her child. Edge said she would be back in a little bit. When Christy asked what she was doing, each brushed it off. She said she was just going out. Edge came in alone. Christy said Edge did not return until around 1 a.m. When Edge came back in, Christy asked again what she had been doing. Edge was standoffish. She refused to explain. Then she said something that chilled Christy later after Shea was dead. Edge told her she could not say what she was doing, but that Christy would hear about it in the paper in the next couple days. Then Edge left. That alone was unsettling. But Christy had more. In the months leading up to She's murder, Edge had been coming to Christy's house often, and she was rarely alone to sight. Another young woman was usually with her, sitting in the car, staying close. Her name was Shelby Heston. Shelby was 18 years old. She's 18 years old. Edge was 29. Edge had been her high school softball coach. After Shelby graduated, she became Edge's assistant coach at another nearby high school. Shelby also worked at the daycare with Edge, just over the border in Fort Recovery, Ohio. People around them noticed the closeness. They seemed inseparable. She's family had noticed Shelby too. Shelby appeared in the background often. There were signs of jealousy between Shelby and She had hinted that he believed there might be something more than friendship between Shelby and Edge. Others suspected it too. Edge and Shelby later denied any romantic relationship. Christy described what those visits looked like. Shelby stayed with the baby while Edge sat at the kitchen table asking for advice. Edge did not want to share the baby. In those conversations, the language shifted. Edie talked about court, about not wanting She involved, and about wanting him gone. Christy told herself it was venting, bitter words said during a breakup, something people said without meaning it. But over time, the talk became more detailed, methods were discussed, and then Shea was murdered. That changed everything in Christy's mind. She believed Edge was involved. She believed she had missed warning signs. She believed she should have seen it sooner. Now she had one chance to speak while the case was still fresh. After Christie's interview, detectives brought Edge back in. On January 14th, 2020, 2 days after Shea's murder, Edge was questioned again. This time, she was confronted with the phone records showing she had called Shea close to midnight. Edgy claimed it was a butt dial. Pressed further, she admitted they spoke, but said it was brief. Edge insisted she did not see Shaddite. Then she was told Shelby was being questioned too. That changed Edge's tone. The calm cracked. The control slipped. Each began to describe the night in full. She admitted she had dropped her daughter off at Christy Sibber's house while Shelby waited in the car. From there, Edge and Shelby went to the church where the daycare operated. Edge said they were moving furniture before church the next day. Another young woman met them there, Hannah Kafke. Hannah was 18. She sometimes worked at the daycare, and Edge had also coached her in softball. At the daycare, Edge described planning. The talk turned into how to get rid of Shea. Edge tried to frame it as joking, as not fully serious, but the actions that followed were real. Earlier that day, Edge had picked up Shelby's rifle from Shelby's house. In the church parking lot, Shelby pulled out the gun and fired a round. Then the three of them got into Hannah's parents' van with the rifle in the back. They drove around, still talking, still circling the decision. At some point, Edge called Shea and invited him to come for a ride. Shea agreed. With Shelby driving, they picked Shea up and headed to the remote bridge. It was around 1:00 a.m. when they arrived. The van stopped on the bridge. Edge and Shea got out. And then Shelby shot Shea in the back. EDJ claimed she did not know Shelby was going to shoot him, but the planning, the gun pickup, the test shot, the drive, and the late-night invitation formed a single line that did not break. After the shot, she fell onto the bridge. Edge knew she was still alive. Instead of calling for help, the three women drove away. Then they turned back. When they returned, they stopped near Shea, Edge, and Shelby got out. They took Shea's cell phone, his only lifeline, and removed it so he could not call 911. E.G.'s admitted she threw the phone into the creek. She remained on the bridge, helpless, clinging to life, for about an hour before he was found by passing drivers. By the time he reached the hospital, the bullet was already in his heart. Edge was arrested and charged with murder. After Edge's account, Shelby admitted she pulled the trigger. She claimed she blacked out and it just happened. Shelby was arrested and charged with murder. Detectives tracked Hannah Kapke to Iowa, where she had returned to college. Hannah admitted involvement as well. She said she did not want to be there, did not even know Shea personally, and did not know what she was getting into when she met them that night. The conversation turned toward shooting him, and Hannah's van became the vehicle used to carry out the plan. Hannah was also booked on a murder charge. Jay County was stunned. A man described as kind, fun-loving, and without enemies had been killed in an isolated place, and the people responsible were not strangers lurking in the dark. They were three women tied together by a small-town web of coaching, mentorship, and loyalty. All three pleaded not guilty. The case went to trial. In March 2021, Esther Steven was the first to face a jury. The courtroom was packed. People came to watch because nothing about the case felt normal. Shea's mother traveled from Hawaii to attend. It was her first time in a courthouse. It was also the first time she had to sit still while the details of her son's last hour were laid out in public. A key piece of evidence was the dash cam video from the deputy who found Shea on the bridge. She could be heard, moaning, struggling, barely alive. Tracy listened and felt the pain in a way no one else could. She wanted to hold his hand. She wanted to be there. But she was not. The prosecution argued Edge orchestrated the murder because Shea's court petition threatened her control. She wanted Shea out of her life and out of her daughter's life. They focused on the gun being picked up from Shelby's house, the test firing in the church parking lot, and Edge's decision to bring Shea to the bridge. Christy Sibber testified about the conversations at her kitchen table. She described talk about getting rid of Shea, talk that grew into detailed discussion. She described a moment when she said Edge could not shoot someone, and Shelby responded that she could. She also described another claim that pills had been put into Shea's tea in an attempt to overdose him. Christie said she did not believe it at the time because she could not imagine Edge doing it. The defense placed blame on Shelby. The defense suggested Edge was shocked by the shooting, that the planning talk was only joking, and that Shelby's feelings toward Shea were the real driver. Edge took the stand. She claimed she did not believe Shelby was going to shoot Shea. She claimed she did not see it coming. She also tried to explain the phone. Edge admitted throwing Shea's phone, but she said she did it out of frustration because she could not unlock it to call 911. She claimed her phone was dead. The prosecution rejected that explanation, pointing out there were 3 people present and many places they could have sought help if they wanted to. The trial lasted 3 days. Then the jury deliberated. Minutes stretched into hours. Each passing moment increased the fear that the case might slip into the. After nearly 2.5 hours, the verdict came back. Guilty. Edge Steven was convicted of murder and later sentenced to 55 years in prison. 3 months later, in August 2021, Shelby Heston went on trial. Shea's mother returned to court and faced the evidence again. She watched the dashcam video again and forced herself not to cry. She refused to give the defendants the satisfaction of seeing her break. Shelby's defense argued the shooting was not intentional, leaning on Shelby's claim that she blacked out, but the act itself remained simple and final. Shelby pointed a gun at Shea and fired. A text message from Shelby to Edge from about a month before Shea's murder was introduced. It read, "I'm killing that bastard with my own 2 hands." The message showed anger, intent, and time. The closeness between Edge and Shelby also stood out. In Shelby's phone, Edge's name was saved as Bae, a term of endearment. After a 3-day trial, Shelby was convicted of murder. At sentencing, Shelby apologized to Shea's family. Shea's Aunt Tiffany believed she meant it. The apology did not change the outcome, but it revealed something different than what had been seen from EGG. Shelby Heston was sentenced to 55 years in prison, the same as Edge. That left Hannah Kapke. For Shea's family, the thought of a 3rd trial was unbearable. The evidence had already been replayed twice. The grief had already been reopened twice. They could not withstand doing it again. A plea deal was reached. In September 2021, Hannah Kapke pleaded guilty to voluntary manslaughter. The sentence could allow her release as early as July 2026. At sentencing, she apologized to Shea's family. For the family, it was still a bitter truth. Hannah was not the mastermind and not the shooter, but she was part of the plan. She was part of the ride, part of the bridge, part of the hours she spent dying in the cold. In the end, Shea Brier's grave was placed beside the small white church he loved. His gravestone reads Daddy. It marked the role, wanted most, the life he was reaching for when he filed the paperwork that he believed would bring his daughter back into his arms. She wanted to be there for his baby. He loved her deeply, and even after everything, his family held on to one image of him that felt true. That he was still watching over her, that somewhere beyond the bridge, beyond the cold concrete and the bullet lodged in his heart, Shea Brier was still close enough to matter,